Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into Leviticus chapter 14. This chapter takes us into some incredibly specific, really vivid regulations, all focus on ceremonial cleansing.
Yes, particularly for someone who's been healed of an infectious skin disease. That's the first part.
And then, quite strikingly, it shifts to rules for a house affected by, well, mildew.
Right, and what jumps out immediately is that cleansing here isn't just, a feeling or a spiritual thing. It's treated as something tangible. It needs these very precise physical actions.
Absolutely. So think about someone who's recovered from one of these skin diseases. The text says they're brought to the priest, but significantly outside the camp.
They're still excluded at this point.
Exactly. So this first ritual, it happens outside the community boundary. It's the first step back.
Right. The priest checks them out, and if they're confirmed as healed, then there's this list of items they need. 2 live, clean birds, some cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop.
Okay, 2 birds, wood, yarn, and hyssop. A specific little bundle.
Yeah. And the ritual starts right there. One of the birds is killed, and it's done over fresh, running water collected in a clay pot.
Fresh water. Running water. That feels significant.
It does. Sort of life-giving water, maybe?
Yeah.
Mixed with the lifeblood of the bird.
Okay, so life and water. And the other bird, the live one.
This is where it gets really symbolic. The living bird plus the cedar wood, the scarlet yarn, and the hyssop. They're all dipped together into that mixture, the blood of the killed bird and the fresh water.
So everything, the durable wood, the bright yarn, the purifying hyssop, and the live bird itself gets coated in this blood and water mix.
Exactly. And then the priest uses this bundle, basically, to sprinkle the person who is healed.
Sprinkles them. How many times?
7 times.
7. Okay, that number always pops up. Completion, perfection, maybe?
Often seems that way, yes.
Yeah.
And after that 7th sprinkle, the priest officially pronounces the person clean.
Clean! But there's still the live bird.
Right. The live bird is then released, set free in the open fields.
Wow. That's quite an image. Like the uncleanness or the person's confinement is just let go, flown away.
It really paints a picture of release, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A return to freedom.
It does. But that's not the end of it, is it? Just getting sprinkled outside the camp isn't full restoration.
Oh, no, far from it.
Yeah.
That just gets them sort of provisionally clean enough to come near the community again. The person then has to wash all their clothes, shave off all their hair.
Wait, all of it. Head, beard, eyebrows.
Yeah.
Everything.
Everything. The text is quite specific, and then bathe thoroughly with water. These are pretty intense physical acts.
Shaving everything feels like really stripping away the old state, doesn't it?
It certainly seems symbolic of a radical break. And even after that, they can come into the camp.
Okay, progress.
But they still have to stay outside their own tent for another 7 days.
Another 7 days. It's a very gradual, phased return.
And on the 7th day of that week, they repeat some of the steps. Yes, shave off all the hair again, wash the clothes again, bathe again. It's like a final emphatic cleansing before they can actually go home.
Right. So only after all that, spanning over a week, are they ready for the final stage, which happens on the 8th day.
Exactly, the 8th day. This involves bringing offerings to the priest right at the entrance to the tent of meeting.
The center of worship, the heart of the community. So this is full reintegration.
Sealed by sacrifice, yes. And for someone who could afford the standard offering, it was pretty substantial. 2 male lambs without any defect, 1 ewe lamb a year old, also perfect, then 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil.
That's the grain offering.
Right. And 1 log of oil,
Wow.
specific measure.
3/10 of an ephah. That's quite a bit of flour. And a log of oil, maybe like a pint. Very precise. What does the priest do with all this?
Well, one of the male lambs is designated as a guilt offering, and that lamb, along with the log of oil, is waved by the priest before the Lord. It's a wave offering.
A presentation ceremony, not just handing it over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the guilt offering lamb is slaughtered in the holy place,
Yeah.
the same area where the sin and burnt offerings happen. Very sacred ground.
And the blood from this guilt offering.
Yeah.
That's used in a very specific way, right?
Extremely specific. And deeply symbolic, it seems. Some of the blood is dabbed onto the person being cleansed, on the lobe of their right ear, the thumb of their right hand, and the big toe of their right foot.
The right ear, right thumb, right big toe. Always the right side. Why those spots?
Well, a common thought is that these represent key aspects of interaction: hearing, doing or working, and walking, or your path in life. Applying the blood signifying atonement, life to these points could symbolize cleansing or rededicating their hearing, actions, and walk within the community and before God.
That makes a lot of sense. Consecrating how they engage with the world again. Okay, what about the oil?
The priest takes some of that special log of oil, pours it into his own left palm, then dips his right forefinger in it, and sprinkles some of that oil 7 times before the Lord.
7 times again. Oil often means anointing, dedication, maybe God's presence?
Often interpreted that way, yes. Sprinkling it before the presence of God. And then, and this is fascinating, some of the oil left in his palm is put on the exact same 3 spots as the blood.
On the right earlobe, right thumb, right big toe.
Yes. And the text explicitly says, on top of the blood of the guilt offering.
Oil on top of blood, so like dedication layered onto atonement. Blessing on top of cleansing.
That's a strong possibility. And then the rest of the oil in the priest's hand is put on the person's head, making atonement for them. Anointing the head often signifies blessing, setting apart.
So it's this layered ritual, atonement with blood, then dedication or anointing with oil applied to key interaction points and the head.
Precisely. But the offerings aren't done yet.
Still more.
After the guilt offering, the sin offering is sacrificed. This seems specifically aimed at making atonement for the uncleanness itself, the state of defilement they were in.
Okay, so guilt offering may be for the consequences or trespass, sin offering for the state of being unclean.
Something like that. And finally, the burnt offering, the other male lamb, and the grain offering are offered on the altar. These are more general acts of worship, dedication, surrender to God, completing the whole process, bringing them back into full relationship.
Wow. That is an incredibly complex, multi-layered ceremony. What if someone just couldn't afford all that? 2 lambs, a ewe.
Good question.
Nah.
And the law accounts for that, which is quite compassionate, really. If someone was poor, they brought significantly less, but the core ritual structure, the key symbolic actions, remained.
How did that work?
They still had to bring 1 male lamb for the guilt offering with the log of oil. That part seems essential. And they still brought a grain offering, but only 1/10 of an ephah of flour, so less. The main difference was, instead of the other lamb and the ewe for the sin and burnt offerings, they could bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Much more affordable.
Okay, so birds instead of lambs for those parts. But the guilt offering part, with the blood and oil on the ear, thumb, toe, that stayed the same.
Exactly the same. The application of the blood, the sprinkling of the oil before the Lord 7 times, putting the oil on top of the blood on the ear, thumb, toe, and then on the head, all that was identical. It suggests that the symbolic core of restoration was non-negotiable, even if the value of the accompanying sacrifices varied. The path was open.
The doves or pigeons then served as the sin and burnt offerings for the poor person.
Right, making atonement alongside their smaller grain offering. Cleanness available regardless of wealth.
That consistency in the main ritual is really interesting. Now, the chapter makes a pretty sharp turn, doesn't it?
It does. It shifts from cleansing a person to dealing with, well, mold or mildew in a house, specifically in the land of Canaan they were headed towards.
Right, so it's about the cleanness of a space, not just a person. And it treats this mildew almost like a disease of the house.
Exactly. It's framed as a form of uncleanness that contaminates the dwelling itself.
So if a homeowner sees something suspicious, like greenish or reddish patches,
They don't call a handyman first, they call the priest, the ritual authority.
and the priest's first instruction is crucial, isn't it?
Yes, empty the house before the priest even comes inside to inspect it.
Why?
So that if the house is declared unclean because of the mildew, everything inside doesn't automatically become unclean too. It contains the contamination.
Ah, preventing secondary contamination. Makes sense.
Right. Then the priest comes in, inspects the walls, looks for these specific greenish or reddish patches that seem to go deeper than the surface, if he sees signs that fit the description.
He doesn't immediately condemn it.
No, not yet. He goes out, closes up the house, seals it off basically for 7 days.
Another 7-day observation period, just like with the person. What happens after 7 days?
Priest comes back. If the mildew has spread during that week, uh-oh,
Bad news for the house.
very bad. The instructions are drastic. Tear out the stones that have the mildew on them.
Just those stones?
Yes, the contaminated ones. Throw them outside the town in an unclean place, then scrape down all the inside walls of the house. And dump all that scraped off plaster and material outside the town too. Get rid of it.
Remove the infected parts, scrape away the potentially contaminated surfaces, dispose of it all outside the community. Then what?
Then you replace the removed stones with new ones and replaster the entire house with fresh clay or plaster. Basically, a major repair job.
Okay, trying to eradicate it. But what if?
Yeah.
What if the mildew comes back even after all that?
If it reappears and starts spreading again after the repairs.
Then it's game over for the house.
Pretty much. The text calls it a destructive mildew, or a fretting leprosy in some translations. It means the house is fundamentally, incurably unclean in this ritual sense. There's no more cleansing attempts. The house must be completely torn down.
The whole thing, stones, timber, plaster, everything.
Everything. And all the materials taken outside the town to an unclean place. Total removal. The contamination is too deep.
Wow, complete demolition. And were there rules, like with the person, about interacting with the house while it was shut up or declared unclean?
Yes. Anyone who just went into the house while it was closed for observation became unclean until evening. And if you actually slept in it or ate a meal in it during that time, you had to wash your clothes.
So just being in the space, using it, transferred the uncleanness.
Definitely. It highlights how this ritual uncleanness was seen as almost contagious, affecting people and objects that came into contact with it.
Okay, but what if the good news scenario happens? After the scraping and replastering, the priest comes back on the seventh day and the mildew hasn't spread.
Ah, right. If the repair worked and the mildew is gone, the priest pronounces the house clean.
So it's saved.
It's saved.
Mm.
But then, just like the person needed a final cleansing ritual after being healed, the house needs a purification ritual now that it's declared clean.
And this ritual involves, don't tell me,
You guessed it, 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and hyssop.
the exact same items used for cleansing the person. That's
Yeah.
remarkable.
The very same. The procedure is almost identical, too. Kill 1 bird over fresh water in a clay pot. Dip the cedar, hyssop, scarlet yarn, and the live bird into the blood and water mixture.
Just like for the person outside the camp, dipping the live bird and the tools.
Exactly. And then use that mixture to sprinkle the house 7 times.
Sprinkling the building itself to make the space ritually clean.
Yes. And then, again, the live bird is released into the open fields outside the town.
Same release, same symbolism.
The text says, "In this way he shall make atonement for the house, and it shall be clean."
That parallel is it's really strong. Using the same symbolic actions, the same materials, to restore both a person and their home.
It really suggests a connected worldview, doesn't it? Where the ritual state of the person and their dwelling space are linked, subject to similar kinds of uncleanness, and needing similar kinds of atonement rituals.
Yeah, a holistic view of purity affecting both body and environment. The chapter wraps up by listing what these rules cover, right?
Yes, it summarizes. Infectious skin diseases, maybe things like eczema or psoriasis, an itch, mildew in fabrics or houses, and then other skin issues like swellings, rashes, or bright spots. These were the signs the priest looked for to make the diagnosis clean or unclean, which then triggered all these detailed procedures.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting thinking about all this. When you look at the incredible detail, the sheer physicality of these rituals, the multiple shavings, the washing, the specific bird wood yarn hyssop combo, applying blood and then oil to exact body parts, scraping walls, tearing down houses, sprinkling people and buildings. What does this intense focus on concrete physical action tell you about how they understood uncleanness itself just based on these rules?
Well, clearly it wasn't just an idea or a purely moral failing, was it? It seems to have been viewed as something almost tangible. A real state that could affect bodies and buildings, could spread, and needed equally real physical and ritual actions to counteract and remove.
Right. It's like the remedy had to be as concrete as the problem was perceived to be.
Exactly. Which raises big questions about that ancient worldview. How did they see the links between the physical world, the body, the home, and this state of ritual cleanness that was essential for belonging, for being near the holy, for being part of the community?
So what does all this intense ritual detail really suggest about how they connected physical conditions with spiritual or communal standing? Definitely something to chew on.